Welcome to the twisted world of Mindtrap, where things are seldom what they seem and never as they should be. As your host, I will be taking you through a variety of dramatic scenarios, each cleverly constructed to exercise those parts of your brain that you seldom use. You know the ones. At the conclusion of the scenarios, I will pose a question based on the events described. A question that will challenge your ability to listen, to think, and to reason. And while I can certainly warn you that some questions are tougher than others, none are as tough as they seem. All you have to do is answer the question before someone else beats you to it. You'll find the correct solutions to the questions in the Mindtrap answer book. Remember, Mindtrap is a game of one-upmanship, and your ship just came in. Good luck. Mindtrap question number 1. As Sid Shady snuck up behind Sam Sham, he smiled. If anyone would understand what he was about to do, it would be his partner in crime, Sham. Ever since they'd arrived in Italy, they'd both known that in all likelihood, only one of them would survive the trip. Sid was just ensuring that it would be him.
Hope you enjoyed your trip, Sam, buddy, 'cause it's over.
With that, Sid slipped a plastic dry cleaning bag over Sam's head. The struggle was violent but brief. Starved of oxygen by the bag, Sam was no match for the stronger Sid Shady.
Nothing personal, Sam. Now, how am I going to make this look like a suicide?
Thinking quickly, Sid dragged Sam's body into the garage, opened the car door, and placed him behind the wheel. Then he rolled down all the windows in the car, wrote a brief suicide note, and placed it on the dashboard. Finally, Sid started the car, and as he left, made sure that all the doors were sealed.
See you later, sucker.
Several hours later, the body was discovered by the groundskeeper. He immediately called the Italian police.
Hey, Giuseppe, where's the body?
It's in here.
It's in this car here.
See, the suicide note, she's in English, and I don't can read.
You stupido, how's it gonna be a suicide? It's a murder.
How did the inspector know, upon immediately entering the garage, that Sam did not commit suicide? Mindtrap question number 2. It was 1796. Catherine the Great, Empress of Russia, had been dead less than 48 hours as the monks of St. Alexander's Abbey prepared for the coronation of Peter III.
He may be a direct descendant of Peter the Great, but I don't think he will be so great.
No kidding, brother. We should maybe call him Piotr the Not So Great.
Peter the Deadbeat might be better.
Shh, keep your voice down. Someone might hear you.
The problem with Peter on the throne is that we will lose the respect of all the other royal houses in Europe.
As if they had any respect for that nympho Catherine.
You can say it then again.
Despite these and other murmurs of discontent, the coronation proceeded as planned. Peter III was crowned Tsar of all Russia by his son Paul.
Long live the Tsar!
For the first 6 months of Peter's reign, prior to his being crowned, he behaved and acted every bit the great Tsar of Russia. However, from the moment he was crowned, it all changed. He refused to utter a single word, and despite any attempts, he absolutely refused to assume his responsibilities.
Brother, it looks like old Peter is living up to expectations.
I think people would be more surprised if he actually did something.
Good point, bro.
Why was Peter III so unwilling to exercise his right to rule? Mindtrap question number 3. Sam Sham, resplendent in striped pants and plaid sport coat, stood in the doorway of the decrepit old house, his patent smile glued to his smarmy face. Ida Gamble shook her head in obvious disbelief.
Sam, I wouldn't buy this house with your money.
Ida, you're not listening.
You're right, I'm not.
I know this place is a dump, despite the obvious character it exudes, but let's be frank here.
No, you be Frank, I'll be Ida.
Ida, we both know the crazy old hermit that owned this dump, and I know you've heard the stories.
And what stories are those, Sam?
Don't play coy with me, Ida. You know as well as I do the old coot is supposed to have hidden a fortune somewhere on his property here.
Go on.
I know you're just trying to get me to lower my price, so let's talk. Because the house has been boarded up for 7 years, you pay the back taxes, and then it's just a question of my fee, okay?
I've talked enough, and I've seen enough, Sam.
Okay, so, I guess you don't want to see the hidden staircase I found, right?
What hidden staircase?
Sam led Ida to a wall, and prying back a piece of simulated oak-pressed paper paneling, he revealed the hidden staircase.
There.
Look!
With flashlights in hand, they investigated.
Watch your step, Ida. I think some of these boards are loose. What was that?
Oh, my God, Sam, look!
Beneath the hidden step, Sam and Ida found a small collection of shiny, sterling silver cutlery. As Ida examined the hallmarks under her flashlight, Sham changed his pattern.
Listen, Ida, considering this discovery here, I think in fairness, I'll have to take the house off the market.
Don't hand me that, Sam. You're just gonna buy the house yourself.
Ida, I'm surprised at you.
Listen to me, Sam. You offered me a deal on this house, and I just took it. Where do I sign?
Well, if you're going to be that way about it, Ida.
How do you absolutely, positively know that Ida just got scammed by Sam Sham? Brain cramp. Question number 4. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Mindtrap question number 5.
Mwah. Have a good day, Sid.
Yeah, right, baby, thanks.
Sid Shady climbed into his car and headed for work. As he drove along, Sid considered the fact that perhaps it was time to mend his jealous ways. After all, decking the pizza delivery boy because he suspected him of flirting with his wife was a bit Neanderthal. As he glided onto the freeway, Sid flipped through the radio dial to catch the previous night's sports scores.
Sakes, where are the sports scores?
Sid continued to curse as he searched the dial for the sports news, growing angrier and angrier by the second.
And now for this morning's Mystery Oldie.
Lousy game shows, I can't take it anymore.
We're calling 987-6789.
Hello?
Yes, sir. This is WCHD. If you can identify this morning's Mystery Oldie, you win a dinner for 2 at the Hungry Holstein Dairy Bar.
Sure, what's the song?
Right, that's it, I got it!
Sid Shady was at his limit. Finally snapping from the pressure, he turned his car around, drove directly home, and shot his wife dead. Why? Mindtrap question number 6. The yellow cab bounced into the service station and sped up to the pumps. The cabbie rolled down his window and bellowed at the attendant.
Fill her up with high test and don't be lollygagging around.
By the way, senor.
The cabbie turned to talk to his passenger in the back seat.
Listen, I know you got a flight to catch, but if we don't get some gas, we're not going anywhere.
Well, if I don't get to that plane, it ain't going anywhere either, because I'm the pilot.
The cabbie threw the attendant a 50 and sped off.
Thank you, senor.
Driving at breakneck speed through rush hour traffic, he arrived at the airport in a record 20 minutes.
Nice driving.
That's what you pay me for.
Thanks.
The pilot threw a 20 on the front seat and dashed for his plane. The cab sped off. As the pilot did his pre-flight check, he realized his aircraft engine was also a little low on fuel. Rather than delay the flight, the pilot put a couple of bananas, apples, bread rolls, and a liter of water into the engine and prepared for takeoff.
GA01, this is Airport Tower. You are cleared for takeoff.
Roger, Tower.
The plane took off and landed safely at its destination several hours later, right on schedule. How could the engine possibly have functioned with such a bizarre mixture of fuel? Mindtrap question number 7. It was just after the conclusion of the Second World War. Harpo, a war veteran left deaf and dumb by a mortar shell concussion, entered one of the largest train stations in the world, Chicago's Union Station.
Boarding train 273 to Newark, New York, Washington, and Cucamonga.
Fiercely self-reliant, Harpo was determined to find his way around without pestering the station porters like some of the other passengers were.
Pardon me, boy.
Yes, sir.
Is that the Chattanooga choo-choo?
Track 49.
Thank you.
Leaving on time.
Thank you.
He dutifully followed the signs posted inside the station and without making a single wrong turn found himself in front of a row of ticket windows.
Yes, 2 return tickets to Walla Walla, Washington, please.
Planning to take a train to Detroit, do a little shopping, and return the same day, Harpo found and joined the line at the Detroit ticket counter and studied the posted ticket prices.
Yes, sir.
One way.
Next.
From reading the sign, Harpo was able to determine that a one-way ticket from Chicago to Detroit was 50 cents, while a return trip ticket was $1.
Where are you off to, sir?
Without a single word or a gesture, Harpo placed $1 on the counter. The ticket clerk automatically gave him a two-way ticket to Detroit.
Have a nice trip, sir.
How did the clerk know for certain that Harpo wanted a two-way ticket? Brain cramp. Question number 8. The 22nd and 24th presidents of the United States had the same mother and the same father, but were not brothers. How could this be possible? Mindtrap question number 9.
come on, Sadie. We're late. Your hair looks divine.
Sam Sham hovered at the bathroom door, watching as his wife Sadie tried to wrestle her hair into submission.
It looks like a rat's nest, Sam.
Yeah, but it's the nest of a very tidy rat, dear. Let's go.
But Sam, the play doesn't start for 30 minutes.
Yes, dear, and it only takes 40 minutes to get there. Therefore, we are currently 10 minutes late.
Sadie reluctantly relinquished her hairbrush, and the two of them hurried to the car. Driving at breakneck speed, they were able to arrive at the Metropolitan Theater a mere 5 minutes late for the opening of the play, Till Death Do Us Part.
Let's try the side door.
Luckily, someone opened the door, and they hurried in.
We made it, Sam.
By the skin of our teeth, as usual.
A mere 15 minutes into the play, it appeared as if Sam had suddenly gone mad. Pulling a nylon rope from beneath his jacket and wrapping it around Sadie's neck, he began to strangle her to death. Sam pulled tighter and tighter on the cord. Sadie struggled valiantly in choked silence, but eventually succumbed to Sam's efforts, slipped from her chair, and collapsed on the floor. Members of the audience stared in mystified horror at Sam, having seen the entire struggle. So, why didn't anyone try to stop him? Mindtrap question number 10. Sam Sham sat in Shadow's office, his muddy boots disrespectfully splayed on the detective's desk.
I'm tired of this, Shadow.
Yeah, join the club, Sam. And get your feet off my desk.
Every time there's a problem in this broken down one dog town, you come around accusing me.
Hey, look at it from my side, Sam.
And what side is that, Shadow?
A jewelry store gets knocked over. We catch the guy on a security camera at precisely 7:45, and despite the mask he's wearing over his face, he bears a striking resemblance to you.
How can someone wearing a mask bear a striking resemblance to me?
All right, just tell me where you were 2 nights ago, and if it checks out, you're covered.
Sham lets out a sigh of frustration and recounts his complicated tale.
At 6:30, I drive to the Odessa Playhouse to catch this lame play called Egg on Your Face.
Seems appropriate.
I sit in seat 4, row P.
Go on.
Just as I get comfortable, the usher asks me to move to seat 3 so 2 couples can have seats 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I moves.
How large of you?
I thought so. So I'm sitting there, and then these old battle axes come in and sit on the seats on my left and start jabbering, so I can't even hear the actors on stage.
Sounds like a great evening out.
As bad as it was, I was doing fine till the 3 old bags complained to the usher when I sparked up my cigar.
Not exactly second-hand smokers, I take it.
So the usher and I get into this minor scuffle, and I bid the ladies, the rest of the audience, and the actors and actresses on stage a loud and boisterous farewell.
Real showstopper.
At least I know they'll remember me.
Not likely.
What do you mean?
How they gonna remember you, Sam, when you weren't even there?
Why doesn't Shadow believe Sham? Mindtrap question number 11. Wilma Hope placed the Do Not Disturb sign on the handle, closed her hotel room door, and set the deadbolt. Checking her watch, she realized it was 1 a.m. as she picked up the phone.
Front desk.
Yes, I'd like a wake-up call, please.
Okie dokie. What time for, madam?
11 a.m., please.
Oh, boy, we're sleeping in, are we? Must be nice.
Well, as exhausted as I am, it's extremely nice, thank you.
All right, enjoy your hibernation, madam.
Thank you, I will.
Falling into bed, Wilma closed her eyes and tried to sleep. After 2 hours of tossing and turning, Wilma threw back the covers in frustration and lunged for the phone.
Front desk.
Yes, can you please ring my business associate, Sally Connor, in the next room?
Say, what are you doing up? I thought you were exhausted.
Could you just ring the room, please?
Well, madam, it's 3 a.m., and unlike yourself, Miss Connor's wake-up call is for 7 a.m.
I know what time it is, but this is urgent.
Well, what could be so urgent at 3 a.m.?
Just ring the room.
Well, aren't we touchy? I'll put you through.
As she heard the phone ring in the next room, Wilma let out a sigh of relief. Within moments, she was sound asleep. What did calling Sally have to do with Wilma's ability to fall asleep? Brain cramp. Question number 12. If a billion follows a million and a trillion follows a billion, what number follows a trillion? Mindtrap question number 13. Her worry getting the better of her, Mrs. Shady's boss picked up the phone and nervously called the police.
12th Precinct Officer Saturday speaking at your service. How can I help?
Yes, I'd like to report a missing person.
How long, ma'am, has this person been missing, gonzo, disappeared, etc.?
Well, I don't really know, except that she didn't show up to work this morning.
A no-show, missing in action, failed to report AWOL, as we say.
And I've been phoning her all morning, and there's no answer.
You would consider this behavior to be strange, unseemly, uncharacteristic, or bizarro?
Yes, very, especially since I know her husband is out of town.
It was a cold, snowy January afternoon as Saturday arrived at the Shady's home. He parked in the street and walked up to the house, noticing that of the 2 sets of tire prints in the driveway, only one was made by Mrs. Shady's car. Approaching the door, he found the key to the house hidden exactly where Mrs. Shady's boss told him it would be, under the flower pot, right next to the notice from the utility company. He checked all the doors and windows. They were locked. Entering the bedroom, he smelled the gas coming from the unlit gas fireplace before he even noticed Mrs. Shady lying dead in her bed. Back at the station, Saturday called the deceased woman's boss to give her the gruesome news.
She was killed, ma'am.
Killed?
Yes, ma'am. Off, murdered, deep 6, wiped out, smudged, snuffed.
Oh my God, I knew something terrible had happened. I could just feel it.
Cause of death was asphyxiation. She was this horrible shade of purpley green when we found her. Eyes wide, drooling spittle.
Oh, how could someone do something like that to a harmless woman?
Well, to be honest, ma'am, her killer was probably unaware of her deed.
Unaware?
Yes, ma'am. Didn't have a clue. Not the foggiest idea. Caught totally unawares. Out of the loop, if you know what I mean.
How then did Mrs. Shady's death occur? Mindtrap question number 14. Shadow stood beneath the high wire, examining the blood stain left in the dirt by the body. Jacques impatiently pushed through the crowd of onlookers.
You wanted to see me, Monsieur Detective?
Yeah, Jacques. What's your story?
My story? Let me tell you my story.
I'm listening.
With that, Jacques unrolled a flashy show bill, which was used to advertise the high wire act.
This is what my story has become. You see any mention of the great Jacques?
Well, no, I don't.
Of course, only Josephine, adored by men, women, children, the world over. But not the great Jacques. She would have been nothing.
So what's your point, Jacques?
For nobody when I found her, and nothing, not even Pierre, could see her potential.
Who's Pierre?
He owns this so-called circus. He refused to pay me for teaching her. She said she was untrainable. But still, I work day and night. I teach her how to eat, how to act, but more, I teach her how to love.
Jacques.
Once the crowds go crazy with applause, then the imbecile can see her potential. Then everything is Josephine. It's Jacques.
Jacques, listen. I understand your frustration, but I gotta ask you a question. Well, the truth here, Jacques. Did you tamper with the tightrope last night so that Josephine would fall?
Yes, I confess. But you cannot arrest me for murder. I was not trying to kill her. I loved her. I only wanted to injure her so again she would meet the great Jacques.
Shadow leveled an icy stare at the once great Jacques. He watched his body quiver with the suppressed sobs of remorse.
I did not mean to kill her today. You must believe me.
He knew that Jacques would be tortured by his deed for the rest of his life, but Shadow felt no pity in his heart.
Yeah, you're right, Jacques. I won't charge you with murder. But I want you to know that what you did was the most reprehensible and cowardly act I have ever borne witness to. You disgust me.
Why wouldn't Shadow charge Jacques for the murder of Josephine? Mindtrap question number 15. Shady, sporting his favorite shirt, the name Sid, boldly embroidered on the breast pocket, lay sprawled on his back below the jewelry store window. His feet, familiarly clad in green and yellow bowling shoes, lay akimbo on the sidewalk.
Please stand back, folks.
I've got pulse and respiration.
I don't like the look of that contusion on his forehead.
Could be a concussion, maybe a subdural hematoma.
We better try and revive him. I'll get the salts.
The paramedic gingerly stepped over the bowling ball and bag that lay near Shady's head and made his way back to the ambulance as Detective Shadow arrived on the scene.
Hey, Shadow.
What's the scoop, Mary?
We just got here. Victim is unconscious, severe contusion to the forehead. I don't know what or who, but something or someone gave this guy a smack on the melon.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.
Here's the salts, Mayor.
Shadow moved in to question the witnesses as the paramedics administered the smelling salts to Sid Shady.
What the? Say, what's going on?
Take it easy, mister. You're gonna be okay.
What happened? Where am I?
Hey, Sid.
Shadow?
Yeah, it's me, Sid. How you feeling?
Well, I'd be fine if they just stopped ringing that damn bell.
That's a natural symptom, mister. You're going to be just fine.
Gee, I'm glad to hear that, Sid. I was getting worried.
You were worried about me? That's a switch, Shadow.
Yeah, I was getting worried that I'd have to take you to the hospital before I arrested you.
If Shady had no criminal record and had not confronted or spoken to anyone that day, why would Shadow arrest him? Brain cramp. Question number 16. Many people consider it amazing that things are always in the last place you look for them. What is wrong with this belief? Mindtrap question number 17. Dan Manley carefully guided the big ship into the dock. A member of the crew was near at hand if needed to assist in the delicate docking operation.
What a day.
Oh boy, you're gonna say that again.
The two men carefully checked to maintain that the ship was secure before they struggled out of their work clothes.
Say, Dan, you want a coffee?
Yeah, please. Then let's review the day's work schedule. Something's bothering me.
Sure, why not?
As the two men sipped their coffees and tried to relax, they reviewed the day's work outline and the detailed analysis of what needed to be completed that day.
Looks like we covered everything.
Yes, sir, sure looks like that, Dan.
Yeah, can you think of anything we might have missed?
Not a thing, Dan.
As Dan considered the events of the day again, he glanced out the window. To his absolute horror, he watched as one of the other crew members accidentally tore a tiny hole in his suit.
Oh, my goodness.
What's wrong, Dan? What's wrong?
Walter tore his suit.
Oh, boy, that's bad news.
Realizing there was nothing they could do about it, the men watched in terror, knowing their friend would be dead in a matter of seconds.
Boy, this is so sad.
Since their co-worker was not shot and didn't stab himself, how did he die? Mindtrap question number 18. Barney Dribble looked longingly out of the rear window of the taxi as it slowly crawled along the crowded city street past a long, long line of nightclubs, hotels, and bars.
First time in a big city, mister?
How'd you guess?
Well, if your mouth was open any wider, you'd have to tuck your chin into your belt.
It's a pretty amazing place, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Anything a heart desires can be found within a city block on this strip.
As they approached the construction site that was responsible for the traffic jam, Barney Dribble realized that this was as good a spot as any to sample the wares of the big city. Besides, with his mouth hanging open for so long, he was frightfully thirsty.
You might as well let me out here, driver.
The driver, unable to hear Barney above the din, drove on. So Barney tapped him lightly on the shoulder.
You.
Let me out here, fella.
No problem.
The driver pulled over to the curb and Barney fumbled for the exact change and a tip.
Can you break a nickel?
Gee, thanks, fella. Now I can take that trip to Florida I've always wanted. Have a fine time in a big city, pal.
Barney jumped from the cab and while watching all the action on the street, headed straight for the nearest watering hole. Walking straight into a bar without uttering a word, he was knocked out cold. Since Barney Dribble had not had a confrontation with anyone from the big city before, how could this have happened? Mindtrap question number 19. Sid Shady watched his wife as she scaled the rock face. Smiling to himself, he thought back to the time when he had taught her gymnastics. She still applied the same strength and agility to learning the fine art of free climbing. So how the heck was he ever going to kill her up here and make it look like an accident?
Okay, that's it. You're doing great, hon.
I don't think so.
But as the words of encouragement escaped his lips, Sid watched in amazement as an animal-like fear of heights gripped his wife with terror. She froze stock still, totally unable to move.
Now look, honey, just don't look down, okay?
Seizing his chance, Sid looked briefly at the spectators below and then immediately began barking instructions.
Honey, turn around and face away from the rock.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Out of blind trust and obedience, the helpless Mrs. Shady put her back to the 90-degree rock face.
Put your heels together against the cliff.
Mrs. Shady placed her feet as commanded and stood frozen on the 2-foot-wide ledge, not daring to look down the 150-foot drop.
Now don't move.
I'm not moving.
Don't move.
Sid quickly hammered a piton into the rock face. Lashing a safety line to it, he secured a safety clip to the other end and threw it to the feet of his wife.
Now, honey, keep your feet together and your bum against the rock face. And whatever you do, don't bend your knees. Now just bend over and pick it up.
I can't, Sid. I'm scared.
Just bend at the waist. You can't fall.
Okay, Sid.
As she began to do as instructed, Mrs. Shady plunged to her death.
Dumb twist.
By the time Sid made his way to the bottom of the hill, Detective Shadow had arrived.
Listen, I did everything I could to help her, Shadow.
Save it, Shady. I've heard all the details. You're under arrest for murder.
Murder?
Why is Detective Shadow accusing Sid Shady of murder? Brain cramp. Question number 20. Two very popular and common objects carry out the same function, and yet one of them has thousands of moving parts, and the other hasn't any moving parts. What are the two objects? Mindtrap question number 21.
Oh!
I beg your pardon. I should really be watching where I'm going.
That's okay.
Excuse me.
Engrossed in reading the back cover of the book he was carrying, Professor Quantum walked into two different people and a book display.
Oh, I'm dreadfully sorry. Let me help you.
No, that's okay, sir. I can pick them.
I'm sorry.
No, really, it's all right.
Quantum continued to the counter and stood in the brief line, again returning his attention to the book he had chosen.
Can I help you, sir?
Yes. This book.
Professor Quantum?
Yes, I'm Professor Quantum. Do I know?
Well, actually, I'm in your History 356.
Why? Yes, you are. Now I remember you. Yeah.
As Quantum handed her the book, she knew full well that he had no idea who she was. He was far too absent-minded to remember the face of one of his students.
I believe you're actually doing quite well in my course, aren't you?
Well, I'm passing, if that's what you mean.
I'm sure you'll end up doing much better than that.
The woman smiled as she flipped over the book.
That will be $27.50, Professor.
$27.50. Oh, my, that's quite dear, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is, Professor.
$27.50.
The professor fumbled through his wallet, his many pockets, and finally his change pouch until he came up with the exact change and laid it on the counter.
Thank you, Professor.
No, but thank you, my dear. I'm sure I'll see you in class.
Yes, sir.
The young woman just shook her head as she watched truly the most absent-minded professor on campus leave without taking the book. She shook her head in wonder as he exited the building, the book still on the counter in front of her. Why wouldn't she call Professor Quantum back to tell him he'd left without the book? Mindtrap question number 22. Clem Walton was raised in the Tennessee hills. He was a curious boy.
Hi, I'm Clem Walton, and when I grow up, I want to be a velour crusher.
As he grew, he became even more curious.
Hi, I'm Clem, and when I grow up, I want to be a professional dog washer.
In fact, it got to the point where Clem's curiousness was just plain weird.
Hi, I'm Clem, and when I grow up, I want to be a Canadian.
No wonder then that throughout his childhood, Clem was unable to find anyone in the Tennessee foothills who would willingly acknowledge him as their kin.
Are you sure you're not my mother?
Leave me alone, kid.
So Clem moved to New York. After several years of unsuccessfully trying to marry a Canadian, he returned to the foothills of Tennessee, and much to his surprise found himself at a Walton family reunion.
Hi, I'm Clem Walton. I'm from New York.
I liked him better when he thought I was his mama.
And while Clem was still unable to find anyone who would willingly acknowledge him as kin, through relentless interrogation, he found one person who admitted to being his mother's only sister's husband's sister-in-law. Since the husband has no brothers, what relation is this woman to Clem?
Beats me.
End of side A. Mindtrap question number 23. Sid Shady cruised around the block while Sam Sham scanned the buildings from the passenger seat.
There's the bank there, Sid.
Perfect, just like old times.
Keep the engine running, Sid. This shouldn't take long.
Sam carefully scoped the sidewalk for police as he dashed into the bank. Rather than go for a big haul, Sam decided to make a quick cash grab. A few $100 should get him through the weekend. Once inside the bank, Sam strode to the front of a long line of people, not knowing or caring how many people he held up, and quickly reached inside his jacket.
Hey, Melonhead, move that Hunter truck. You're blocking the lane.
Hey, go around, you moron!
Sid sat anxiously in the car as the traffic snarled around him. He watched all the confusion and hysteria Sam was causing in the bank and smiled nervously as he spoke to himself.
Oh, Sam, don't take all day.
I'd like to thank all you suckers for your patience.
Hey!
That guy's crazy.
With a fistful of bills, Sam charged out of the bank and almost knocked over a little old lady entering the bank.
Ouch!
Watch where you're going, you old battle axe.
As Sam turned, cash still grasped firmly in his hand, he saw his old nemesis Shadow watching the whole scene unfold.
Hey, Sam. How's it going?
As he turned toward the car to make his getaway, his worst fears were realized. Shadow's car was parked directly in front of Sid Shady's, foiling any chance they had at escape.
Okay, Shadow, you caught us.
Sam raised his hands in mock surrender.
Detective Shadow, there's a 914 in progress at Elm and Byron. Proceed at code 3, over.
Well, looks like you got up on the right side of the bed, Sam.
See you in the funny paper, Shadow.
Without another word, Detective Shadow sped off. Sam and Sid couldn't believe their good luck. So why would Shadow leave without arresting Sid and Sam? Brain cramp. Question number 24. In what month do Americans drink the least amount of beer? Mindtrap question number 25.
Doctor, you must help me.
Mrs. Tittle rushed into the office of Dr. D. Scepter, clutching a clear plastic bag full of water. The doctor looked at her quizzically.
Well, what is the problem, Mrs. Tittle?
It's Goldie, Doctor. She won't eat.
With that, Mrs. Tittle thrust the plastic bag into D. Scepter's hands and began to blubber through her tears.
She hasn't eaten in 2 days, and I fear the worst.
No.
D. Scepter looked closely at the bag and for the first time noticed the little goldfish.
Oh, boy.
It was swimming feebly, almost on her side. Her golden color, dim and lifeless.
Oh, boy.
Clearly, old Goldie was on her last fin.
Doesn't look good, Mrs. Tittle. Goldie's in very, very rough shape. You should prepare yourself for the worst.
Oh, but Doctor, I've had Goldie since she was a guppy.
Yeah.
You have to do something.
Mrs. Tittle.
I'm a wealthy woman, Doctor.
Is that so?
Money is no object.
Of course it isn't.
Hearing the magic words spoken in exactly the right sequence, Dr. D. Scepter quickly changed his tune.
Now look, Mrs. Tittle, there is one remedy, but it's not only risky, but extremely expensive.
Will it work?
Well, so far I've been unsuccessful, but I believe I have the problem sorted out.
Please save my Goldie.
Very well, Mrs. Tittle, I'll try, but I will require full payment up front to cover my expenses.
Whatever you say, Doctor.
Mrs. Tittle paid D. Scepter's exorbitant fee and left his office full of anxious hope. Several days later, she returned.
Come in, Mrs. Tittle.
Mrs. Tittle scurried into D. Scepter's examining room.
Where's my Goldie, Doctor?
Now.
Fearing the worst from the doctor's tone, she was a bundle of frazzled nerves.
What's happened?
With that, D. Scepter took a large goldfish bowl that he had concealed behind his back and placed it on the desk.
Ta-da! Right here, Mrs. Tittle.
Oh, Doctor, you've cured her.
Yes, Goldie took marvelously to the treatment. I think you'll notice she may have even put on a little weight.
She does look marvelous. How can I repay you?
Well, madam, I must admit that the treatment itself was even more expensive than I had thought.
Whatever the cost, it's worth it.
Okay.
How did D. Scepter manage to cure Goldie? Mindtrap question number 26. Detective Shadow knocked on the door of 99 Shyhook Lane.
May I help you?
Barney Dribble,
Yes, sir.
I'm Detective Shadow.
How can I help you, Detective?
I have a report, sir, that your car was seen fleeing an accident this morning, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is a very serious offense.
I haven't driven my car for 2 days, Detective. There must be some mistake.
With that, Bertha Gribble, who had been secretly listening to the entire conversation, sauntered up behind her husband.
Barney, what are you doing out here? And who are you?
I'm Detective Shadow, ma'am.
Is that so?
As Shadow again explained his reason for being there, he was careful to hide his amusement at the rather odd-looking couple. Barney was barely 5 feet tall and weighed probably 110 pounds soaking wet. Bertha was 6'2" and tipped the scales at cruiserweight.
Now you look here, Shadow. Barney brought that car home 2 days ago and hasn't moved since.
Just the same, ma'am. I'd like to examine it myself.
Suit yourself. It's in the garage.
Ordering her husband into the house, Bertha grabbed the keys from a doorside wall hook and marched Shadow to the garage.
Here it is. You can go over it with a microscope for all I care.
Actually, I'd like to see it in the daylight, if you wouldn't mind pulling it out.
Unaccustomed to being the one taking the orders, Bertha shook with frustration as she slid in behind the wheel of the little sports car. Revving it to the red line, she laid 3 feet of rubber as she screeched out of the driveway. Bertha leapt from the car and leveled an icy stare at Shadow.
Satisfied?
Quite satisfied, ma'am.
I'll be in the house. If you want anything else, I'll send my husband.
I'd just as soon you got him now. I'd like to take both of you in for questioning.
Why was Shadow taking them in? Mindtrap question number 27. It is Somerset, England, 1685. A servant girl dressed in grimy, tattered, dirt-crusted livery rushes into her master's studio.
Master, you have been summoned. Hurry.
Slow down, girl. Catch your breath. Now, what's so urgent?
You've been summoned, sir, by the King's Court.
The King's Court? Right out. Why?
To paint a portrait, sir, of the Duke of Monmouth.
The Duke of Monmouth?
You will be famous throughout the kingdom, Master.
Not so fast, girl. I've yet to paint the portrait. But you're right. It's a fine opportunity and will bring a fine commission. We must pack my pants and supply.
Yes, Master.
Hurry, the Duke is not to be kept waiting.
Quickly, the servant girl packed her master's supplies while the painter tried his best to make himself presentable to the Duke.
The painter Nella to see his dukedom.
Neller and his servant girl were quickly ushered into an audience with the Duke. Both bowed long and low to his majesty.
I thank you for your most gracious patronage, my lord. please. You're looking well, my Duke, all things considered.
Miller quickly set to work. Studying the profile of the Duke for several moments, he began to rummage through his supplies. Failing to find what he was looking for, he turned to his servant.
No, you have failed to pack a crucial piece of equipment.
What, Master?
Pray tell, how dare I proceed without a needle and thread?
Why would Neller need a needle and thread before he could paint the Duke's portrait? Brain cramp. Question number 28. If Art Bragg's peacock laid an egg on Bertha Dribble's driveway in Chicago, Illinois, who would be the rightful owner of the egg? Mindtrap question number 29. The two ambulance attendants lifted the lifeless pulp of Mrs. Sham off of the pile of rope. Shadow compared the clean-cut end of the fallen rope to the shorter one he had retrieved from the piton at the top of the cliff. They matched perfectly.
Look, I know this is tough, Sam, but for the record, I'm gonna need to know exactly what happened.
It was horrible. I told her we should have never gone rock climbing.
All right, just go over it slow from the start.
I told my wife to drive a piton in at the top of the cliff and secure the rope to it. So she did.
Go on.
Then she clipped it onto her belt and began to lower herself over the side.
Between his blubbering, Sam explained that his wife was making good progress at first, but then something went wrong.
Well, she just started swinging, back and forth, back and forth. It was horrible. There was nothing I could do. It snapped. I mean, it snapped. Down she went. So I just ran to the phone booth over there and called an ambulance.
Well, I feel very sorry for you, Sam.
Thanks, Shadow.
It can't be easy living with yourself after murdering your own wife.
Murder? What?
Why does Shadow think Sam murdered his wife? Mindtrap question number 30. Deceptor, the world-famous traveling magician, and his lovely and talented assistant, Donna Juana, arrived in the quaint little French village of Coupe-la-Fromage, a town famous for its cheese. As luck would have it, he arrived in the midst of the annual cheese festival.
Well, looks like we couldn't have timed it better, my dear.
Assuming, of course, you're a big cheese fan.
As a matter of fact, I'm both.
Both what?
Big cheese and a big fan of cheese.
Stop it, dude. You're killing me.
Deceptor and Donna perused the many cheese displays, finally arriving at the three finalists for Best Cheese in Show. As he turned to face the judges, Deceptor threw a wink at Donna.
Gentlemen, I must commend you on your selection. I agree that these are indeed the three finest cheeses of the day.
And you, monsieur, besides in a mercious Florentine person?
The judges sniggered to themselves in that deprecating way that only the French had managed to truly master.
I am Deceptor, the world-famous magician, your cheesiness.
We'll be the judge of that.
Then perhaps I could share with you my famous cheese trick.
A cheese trick, a gauche.
Actually, it's quite a droit. All I require is 3 hats and these 3 cheeses.
With that, Deceptor took 3 hats from the crowd that had assembled and quickly placed them over each of the 3 cheeses.
First, gentlemen, I'll make the cheeses disappear.
With that, Deceptor lifted the first hat and ate the cheese. The crowd was aghast, but before they could quite react, Deceptor lifted the other 2 hats and ate the last 2 pieces of cheese. At this point, the crowd was quite animated.
Why, you cheese thief, in the
Now relax, Judge.
Deceptor now raised his voice to address the ever-increasing crowd of townfolk.
Mesdames and messieurs, I will now before your very eyes, and if you'll excuse my French without throwing up, put all 3 pieces of cheese that I've just eaten under one of these hats.
How did Deceptor do it? Mindtrap question number 31. After finishing a traditional Japanese dinner, Professor Ayoto Lokomoto rose from the floor and invited his guests to join him in the living room.
Breathe. Be comfortable.
Is it okay to sit in the furniture?
As his guests seated themselves, Lokomoto set up his slide projector, explaining that he had just spent his first day at the beach and wanted to share his experiences with his most honored guests.
Oh, wonderful.
As she put her elbow into her husband's ribs, the woman responded more graciously.
We would be honored.
Yeah, of course.
Lokomoto slid down his screen and fired up the slide projector.
This is parking lot.
Ah.
This is same parking lot from different perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Sam, wide-angle shot.
A nice color.
Sand, medium shot, no taste texture.
Wow, yeah, it looks just like sand there.
You'd like to see the grains?
All
Sand
right.
cross up?
Yeah, live for it.
At the conclusion of the 12th slide tray, Lokomoto came to his prize photo. Before revealing it to his guests, Lokomoto explained the circumstances under which it was taken.
This picture is Most strange. At the end of the day, I see big, huge cloud on beach.
That must have been a thundercloud, eh?
Not cloudy sky, cloud of people.
I mean crowd.
Yes, crowd. So I push through and I behold these most strangest of sights.
Man, now that's a great picture there, Locomoto.
Very nice, Professor.
The picture he revealed showed 3 beautiful women in bikinis. But the strange part was that while 2 of the women were smiling, they were very sad. The 3rd woman is crying, but she is very happy. What is it a picture of? Brain cramp. Question number 32. George could see that the finish line was near, and with a burst of speed he passed the others and won the race by several feet. Although the first prize was $1,000 and a beautiful glass trophy, George never received either. Why not? Mindtrap question number 33. The sun turned the Amazon rainforest an emerald green as it rose slowly above the canopy of trees. General Sherman, safely aloft in his helicopter, brought binoculars to his eyes in order to survey the battle preparations far below.
Take her down, Lieutenant. Sir, I want a better look?
Yes, sir.
Sherman could clearly see the scouting parties moving out from their base camp to determine the size of the opposing forces.
Okay, I've seen enough, Lieutenant. Let's get back to camp.
What do you think, General, sir?
I think we're looking at a long, fierce battle here, son. Good last days.
Days, sir?
I want to be in the air tomorrow morning at 0600.
Yes, sir.
The next morning, the general was back in the air as planned, and there was indeed plenty to see. A fierce battle waged in the plains far below.
I've never seen such carnage, sir.
Savage, isn't it, son?
Yes, sir.
50 years of combat experience is the most desperate fighting I've ever witnessed. Any reports from the ground?
Yes, sir. Casualties are reported to be in the thousands.
Thousands,
Yes,
eh? What about the dead?
Not even bothering to bury them, sir. They just drag them away from the camp and heap them into huge piles to decompose. It's barbaric, sir.
Mass graves are efficient, Lieutenant. Just wait till there's a victor.
Victor, sir? Why?
I've heard about them. The victorious army will round up the defeated forces and enslave the survivors. Hundreds of them, even children, forced into harsh labor.
How can they do that, sir?
They're soldiers, son. And this is war. Fought for the oldest reason wars are ever fought. For territory.
Yes, sir.
Take her back to camp, Lieutenant. I have a report to write.
Yes, sir.
Upon returning to camp, the general composed a report detailing the carnage and the barbarism. He stamped it eyes only and handed it to his aide.
Do you want this in the mailbag to HQ, General?
No, it's for your eyes only.
What about the press, sir?
Forget it.
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't Army HQ or the press have an interest in this battle? Mindtrap question number 34. Detective Shadow sat on the sofa, skeptically watching Sid Shady as he fumbled with the VCR. Inserting the tape, he pressed play and waited till the screen glowed to life.
Well, anyway, this is the part here, Shadow. As you can see, we're in the Caribbean on our yacht, and there's my wife there.
Shadow watched the amateurish video, paying special attention to Sid's wife, Shapley. Dressed in a bathing suit, she strutted along the deck. Far at sea, no land was visible.
Yeah, go on, Shady.
Well, as you can see, I'm shooting all this from the dinghy at the back of the boat, like, you know, and I'm trying to capture my wife, you know, in front of the sunset, like.
Shadow continued to take in the beauty of the setting and the subject matter as a boat suddenly appeared on the screen.
There, that's the boat there, Shadow. See? She's waving them over.
True to Sid's words, Shapley was beckoning to the approaching craft, and there was no doubt in Shadow's mind that any sailor on the open sea would fail to respond to that invitation.
Now, this is where it gets grisly, Shadow. You'll have to excuse me if I turn my head. I just can't bear to watch it.
Yeah, I understand, Sid.
Shadow watched in fascination as a masked man suddenly appeared on the deck of the approaching craft with an automatic rifle in his hands. Training his weapon on Shapley, he appeared about ready to fire. Sid, with his back to the screen, explained,
I was too stunned to think, Shadow. I mean, I hope she can forgive me, but I just couldn't move. I just kept filming. Has it happened yet?
No, not yet.
The camera panned over to Shapley at this point, just in time to see her chest explode like a ripe red tomato as she is thrown into the air backwards and over the side of the boat. Suddenly, the screen went dark and was soon followed by the static at the end of the tape.
At this point, all I could think was to save myself. I guess I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life.
But I suppose the hefty insurance policy you have on your wife could lighten the burden a bit?
Say, don't be so callous, Shadow. That's my wife you're talking about. I loved her.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you still do love her, Sid. Literally.
And what's that supposed to mean?
It means your wife is still alive, Sid, and you watch too much TV.
How does Shadow know that Sid's wife is still alive? Mindtrap question number 35. Art Brett, the self-designated master of ceremonies, got up from the head table and approached the podium.
While we're waiting for the Cardinal to arrive, it seems only fitting that I share my own recollections of my early days with Cardinal Bird. It all started in a 25-pew church in Fresno, California. In fact, it seems like only yesterday. It was a cool but sunny day. I was wearing a plaid jacket, as I recall. When I first met Cardinal Bird, he had just entered the priesthood.
The crowd, quite familiar with Bragg's unparalleled ability to bore, did their best to stay awake as he droned on, and on, and on, and on. When the Cardinal finally arrived, he was hustled to the podium and mercifully cut short Bragg's detailed autobiography. Bragg stood by while the Cardinal began his speech.
It was exactly 30 years ago today that I began my priesthood in this very town of Fresno. In fact, it was here that I gave my first sermon, celebrated my first communion, and heard my very first confession. In fact, it is this that I remember best, because it involved a confession to murder.
As the Cardinal continued his speech, a woman from the crowd walked up to the podium, pulled out a gun.
It's been a long time coming.
And fired at the stage. Who did she kill, and why? Brain cramp. Question number 36. What, from statistical records, is the most dangerous job in America? Mindtrap question number 37. As Wilbur gassed up the big station wagon with genuine simulated oak paneling on the side, he couldn't help but notice the out-of-state license plates.
Well, I sure hope y'all had a nice drive through our mountains.
The driver of the car leaned out the window.
Why, thank you, mister. Hey, we sure did. This is a beautiful piece of country.
Don't I know it, son?
Listen, are there any other sights along the way that we should take the kids to see?
Hell yes, son. You got to drop in on Aunt Lily's souvenir shop. It's just up the road a piece on the right side.
On the right side?
Can't miss it, son. Can't miss it.
Wilbur waved goodbye to the family as they headed onto the road.
Now, while you're at Aunt Lily's, make sure you give my regards to Cousin Clam.
Oh, we will. Thanks again.
Bye. See you later. Bye.
Are you sure you want to go to this Aunt Lily's?
Oh, come on, hon. The kids will love it.
Dad and the kids won the day as several minutes later they pulled into the parking lot of Aunt Lily's Possum Palace and Souvenir Shop. The kids charged from the car with Mom and Dad hard on their heels.
Hi, I'm Clem, and I like shiny things.
As the kids walked up to the store, they saw Clem, the town idiot, sitting in a chair with a hat full of shiny coins in his lap.
Hi, I'm Clem, and I like shiny things.
The family took a look around at the cheap souvenirs, biding their time till they could leave without seeming impolite when Lily strutted up.
Hey, kid, you want to see the funniest thing in these old hills?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, why don't you take a $5 bill and a 50-cent piece out to old Clem and offer him his choice and watch him go for that shiny $50?
Really? Okay.
So the kids got the appropriate change from Lily and went out to offer Clem his choice.
Hey, Clem, what would you rather have, a $5 bill or a 50-cent piece?
My name's Clem, and I like shiny things.
With that, Clem took the 50-cent piece. In fact, as each person in the family offered Clem the same choice, he always took the half-dollar coin. Now, knowing that Clem isn't half the idiot he pretends to be, why would he always go for the 50-cent piece? Mindtrap question number 38. James thought back to the meal he had just finished and sincerely wished that he hadn't. It was exactly what he had ordered, but it was sitting in his stomach like a lead weight.
Surely you jest. Why on earth would I give you a tip for your services?
I appreciate your position, sir, but it is customary.
Customary?
Yes, sir. And besides, with the paltry sum they pay me, combined with the current harsh economic realities, I can hardly afford to feed and clothe a family of 11.
Well, it is scarcely my concern, and surely not my problem. I suggest you take these issues up with your employer.
Lord, I realize it's not a good day, sir.
That's beside the point. Why the devil would I pay you for a service that you've yet to perform?
Well, think about it, sir. You and I both know that if I don't collect my tip now, it's not very likely that I will receive it after I finish the job.
Good point.
And to be completely frank, sir, I find a monetary token of appreciation prior to the performance of my duties an excellent incentive.
I see.
And let's face it, no one, particularly yourself, wants to see me mess this up. I remember last year it took me 3 times to get it right.
Well, it's hard to argue with that kind of logic, my good fellow.
James reached into his bag of gold coins and grabbed a handful. Then, reconsidering, he replaced the coins and gave the entire bag to the man.
That's very generous of you, sir.
Well, you certainly present a good argument. Besides, it strikes me that I've got more money than I've got time to spend anyway.
Well, that's a very noble way to look at it.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, I thank you in advance for your prompt and courteous service, and I bid you a fond farewell, as I have a date with destiny that won't wait.
Once again, sir, I do appreciate your position.
What service was James paying for? Mindtrap question number 39. Detective Shadow leaned against a filing cabinet in the office of Shady's nightclub. As he pensively tapped his pencil on his pad in time to the sleazy jazz filtering through from the bar, he listened to Sid Shady finish his story.
I'm telling you, Shadow, it was my low-life brother-in-law, Sam.
Sam?
Yeah, Sam Sham. He done it.
Shady waited for a response. Shadow slowly slid back his fedora and pinched the skin at the bridge of his nose.
Okay, Shady. Again, from the top.
Come on, Shadow, go eat a donut. I got a nightclub to run.
From the top, Shady. Nice and slow.
Shady shook his head and turned his eyes to the nicotine-stained ceiling. Trying his best to look perturbed, he began again.
All right. So I'm sitting in the back here counting the cash when I hear this noise.
What kind of noise?
A noise. What am I, an audio technician? So I look up and some big dinosaur with a stocking over his puss is aiming a crossbow at my chest.
A crossbow?
Yeah, like a bow and arrow, only horizontal like.
You're a riot, Shady.
I know. So he tells me to turn around. I do it, no debate. I hear him pocketing the cash. I turn around, he's gonzo, not a trace.
So tell me, Shady, why are you so sure it's your brother-in-law?
Shady swiveled in his chair, seemingly bored with the whole line of questioning.
Look, like I told you, the Pinhead was wearing a T-shirt I bought for him in Tennessee.
And you recognized it?
Of course. We had it specially printed to say Sam Sham's Tennessee Sippin' Whiskey right on the back.
This brother-in-law of yours ain't too bright.
Look, Shadow, as they say, the lights are on, but the elevator doesn't go to the top.
Right.
Now listen, I'm gonna need a good report for the insurance company, pal.
No, you're gonna need a good lawyer, Shady.
Why doesn't Detective Shadow believe Shady's story? Brain cramp. Question number 40. How should you pronounce the second day of the week? Tuesday or Tuesday? Mindtrap question number 41.
While we're still young, guys.
Can you believe this?
Yeah, they'd be better off trying to hit a beach ball.
Art Bragg and Barney Dribble stood on the 18th tee, staring defiantly down the fairway at the twosome in front of them.
No, really, guys, take your time. We got 2 hours of daylight left.
I can't believe we've been out here for 6 hours.
Hey, guys, do your husbands play the game?
Their frustrations with the slow play of the twosome ahead had gotten the better of them on the 12th hole. Since then, there had been a steady torrent of abuse hurled down the fairways and across the greens and tees.
Took him 7 swipes at that ball to move it 6 feet.
Hey, fella, way to go. You got all of that one.
The two not-so-able golfers ahead chose to take the abuse in stride, not even bothering to look back up the fairway at their tormentors.
Well, thank you. It's about time.
40 minutes later, a very frustrated Art and Barney dragged their behinds into the bar and slid them onto a couple of bar stools not so far from the offending twosome. Spotting the owner of the golf course, Freddie Green, they quickly lit into him. Gesturing with his head toward the other twosome, Bragg started.
Hey, Freddie, what's the idea of letting those two lunkheads out on the golf course?
Yeah, Freddie, sign them up for lessons, but for Pete's sake.
Hey, keep it down, you guys. They might hear you.
Oh, come off it. They've heard us already, as if I care.
Well, maybe you should care. They're blind.
Both looked at Freddie in dumb silence. While Bragg paused to consider the import of Freddie's words, Dribble whispered his apology.
Mind? Oh, I feel terrible. We've been abusing them pretty bad. Maybe we should buy them a beer, Art.
Are you kidding, Barney? Think about it for a minute. Not only did they waste our time out there, but now you want to waste our money on two guys that clearly have more money than brains.
Why in the world would Art arrive at this conclusion? Mindtrap question number 42. Barney Dribble saw the woman across the park and raced through the intersection on his bicycle. It was the same routine every Friday. They always met just outside the park.
How's it going, Donna?
It's going.
How's business?
Cool.
Cool, eh? Thanks, Donna.
Don't mention it, Barney. See you next week.
Donna rode slowly off on her bike. Barney took off on his. It was the last time anyone ever saw Barney alive.
All right, nobody touch a thing, all right? Get away from the body. Constable Bumlinger.
Yeah.
Clear these people out of the area.
All right, come on, people. It's just a mangled corpse oozing carnage. Let's move along, shall we?
Detective Shadow surveyed the scene. He studied the twisted bicycle in the middle of the street. He carefully examined the body face down at the side of the road. He noticed one of the hands lay near the mouth clutching a small stick, the head surrounded by a pool of red.
What are you looking for, Shadow? A suicide note?
Constable Bumlinger was slouched against the side of the car, picking his fingernails with his handcuff key, disdain dripping from every pore.
Well, sounds like you got it all figured out, Bumlinger. Why don't you enlighten me?
Sure, simple. Car hits bike falls down, and man smashes his head like a pumpkin.
Who got all the brains in your family, Bumlinger?
What do you mean by that?
It's murder, Bumlinger. Premeditated murder. It's written all over the road.
Murder?
Oh, I forgot, Bumlinger. You can't read.
How was Barney Dribble killed? End of side B. Mindtrap question number 43.
I have no doubt, sir, that you, sir, are Sir Arthur Bragg, sir. Is that so?
Shadow did his best to conceal his anger and his contempt as he confronted the overdressed dandy straddling the bicycle.
But I was right across the lake when I heard the shot, which was alarming because it ain't hunting season.
Well, why, pray tell, are you so certain it was a shot, Detective?
I don't gotta pray. I can tell.
Oh, my, aren't we clever?
By the time I rode over here, I found you riding out of the woods with this freshly shot duck in your bicycle carrier.
I see, and so you've now determined through your immense powers of deductive reasoning that it was I that shot the duck?
No, sir. I'm merely in the process of determining it.
Well, I'll have you know that I was merely out for a bicycle journey, as you can readily verify with the proprietor of the Soul Ace Hotel.
And I'm sure he'd have no trouble remembering a sir like you, sir.
Especially since someone nicked my saddlebags and bicycle pump while I was inside this fine beverage-serving establishment.
Nicked your saddle?
Bags, Detective, saddlebags. But luckily I had my wallet and tire repair kit in my knapsack, which I had the terrible good sense to bring in with me.
And I suppose he gave you this duck as a token of his sympathy, sir.
Hardly. He gave me another ale, which I quickly quaffed before climbing on my bicycle. Then while pedaling along the roadside, lending a gaze to the flora and fauna, my bicycle tire exploded.
Exploded, sir?
Like boom, Detective, which I would hazard to guess is the supposed gunshot you heard.
Yeah, similar sounds, I suppose.
Anyway, I repaired the tire with my trusty repair kit, climbed back on my bike, which I was riding oh so merrily along, when I came upon the dearly departed.
The dead duck, you mean,
I
sir?
prefer deceased, actually. It's less cliched.
Which you then stashed in your bicycle carriage.
Indeed, I did retrieve the duck and carefully stowed it in my carriage. After all, I saw no reason to let this fine specimen go to waste.
Oh, indeed not.
Now listen, Detective, you're boring me, so may I please be on my merry way?
No, you most certainly may not be on your merry way with your dearly departed deceased duck.
Oh, really?
For you, sir, and I do use the term with the greatest levity, most fully intended,
Yes?
are a bald-faced liar.
I beg your pardon.
And quite a terrible bald-faced liar, I might hastily add.
What was the flaw in Bragg's story? Brain cramp. Question number 44. Ironically, more is known about some of the pre-Egyptian civilizations than about early Egyptian civilizations. This is said to be because of an Egyptian invention. What invention deprived us of some historic data? Mindtrap question number 45. Shadow stood at the front of the conference room talking to the chief of security. As the last of the airport security officers filtered in, he turned to address them.
All right, find a seat, people. This could take a while. Can someone dim the lights?
I got him, sir.
All right, anyone know what this is? Come on, don't be shy.
No idea. Is that the Mona Lisa?
Right. Anyone know who this is?
No idea. Michelangelo.
No. And it isn't Leonardo da Vinci either. This is Sid Shady, a world-renowned art thief.
That's Sid Shady?
Our intelligence has informed us that Shady will attempt to smuggle the Mona Lisa out of this country sometime within the next 48 hours.
How's he gonna do that?
Good question. And if we knew the answer, I wouldn't have to be here talking to you cement heads. All right, now suspect anything and anyone. He's been known to use disguises. Any other brilliant questions?
Yeah. If our knees bent the other way, what would a chair look like?
All right. Now, while we all ponder this cosmic question, let's try and stop Shady before he gets the painting out of town, all right? That's it.
It was 3:27 a.m. when the phone rang through to Shadow's room.
Shadow.
Detective, it's Captain O'Reilly from Airport Security. We got him.
them, O'Reilly?
Yeah, Shady and Mona.
How?
Well, he was disguised just like you said. You know, wig, fake mustache, and a deep, dark tan. He probably would have got through, but the knucklehead used his own passport.
Good work. And the painting?
Yeah, we found it rolled up among some architectural drawings in an art tube. You know, I gotta hand it to this guy, though. He doesn't give up. We caught him red-handed. He still claims he's innocent.
He is innocent.
You kidding?
Release him.
I don't believe it.
Why would Shadow release him? Mindtrap question number 46. Europe, 1914. World War I rages. Somewhere behind the British trenches, Major Twit and Major Terribly share their personal observations on the war over afternoon tea.
I must say, Twitter chap, I do fancy the smell of cordite in the morning.
Yes, quite.
In fact, it smells very much like victory.
Indeed, Major.
Yeah. Oh, fancy bit of Earl Grey, old boy.
I'd prefer some tea, actually.
Good one, Twit.
Listen, tell me, Terribly, I'm quite perplexed by some rather disturbing figures that have just come down from HQ.
Oh, how so, Twit?
As you know, Major, when we first started this World War affair, we uniformed the enlisted men in those rather dashing cloth caps.
Indeed, the Melton cloth with the twill piping and the functional fold-down peak.
Exactly right. And of course, you remember also we started to get a dreadful number of those rather severe head injuries.
Oh, quite. As a matter of fact, I believe I recall seeing quite a few bloody heads. Yes, indeed. Crumb cake?
That's Major Crumb Cake, too.
Oh, of course, yes, crumb cake.
Now, back to my point. This is precisely why we started issuing those cumbersome and unattractive saucer-like metal helmets.
Awfully unflattering, I agree. And in my opinion, they make the men look rather like thumbtacks.
Quite, but that's not the perplexing part, Terribly.
What then, Twit, old
Well, since switching to those ghastly helmets, the number of head injuries has actually risen substantially.
Go on.
Indeed, and since the intensity of battle has remained constant, I just can't think of how to explain it.
Well, it is rather odd, I agree, but I do hope it means we can bring back the cloth caps, bloody heads aside. Those helmets look downright colonial. Something the Yanks would wear, no doubt.
Following the switch to helmets, why did the number of head injuries actually increase? Mindtrap question number 47. Shadow leaned against a telephone pole outside the Wyatt Hotel, surveying the approaching pedestrians. As he noticed Sam Slug hunkering his head into the collar of his trench coat, Shadow pushed himself off of the pole and intercepted him.
Hey, Sam.
Shadow.
Long time no see.
Too bad not longer.
So, you, on your way into the Wyatt?
Hey, can a guy even get a drink without being bothered by the town dick?
Going in to see your old pal Fast Frida, I take it, huh?
You can take it any way you want, Shadow, but I don't hang around with a fast crowd, and I don't know no Frida. Never seen this bar before.
Fast Frida was the owner of the Wyatt. Besides being known for serving the finest drinks in town, she also ran the meanest loan shark operation on the East Coast.
Well, then let me have the pleasure of buying you your first drink in this fine establishment.
With that, Shadow opened the door to the Wyatt and held it for Sam to enter.
Not like you to be so generous, Shadow, but if you're buying them, I'm drinking them.
What'll it be, gents?
Scotch rocks, Frida. Sam?
Gin martini.
Coming right up.
Frida turned to prepare the drinks. Keeping his voice at a level at which he could be sure that Fast Frida would hear it, Shadow continued.
Hey, you want to hear a funny story, Sam?
Hey, free drinks and entertainment from the local heat? This must be my lucky day.
Yeah. Apparently, some guy in a ski mask with a build a lot like yours, Sam, pounded out some poor taxpayer.
Hey, tough town to serve and protect, eh, Shadow?
Yeah. And right after he beat the tar out of him, he told him it was a warning from Fast Frida to pay his debt.
Who's Fast Frida?
And you know what? This taxpayer was sure he could positively identify that voice as yours, Sam. Hilarious, eh?
Yeah, you got one strange sense of humor, Shadow.
Yeah, I cracked myself up.
Frida set the drinks in front of Shadow and Sam. Sam eagerly took a sip of his martini.
Perfect, honey.
Thanks.
So I don't suppose there's any chance you've ever been in here before, huh?
Sam turned to Frida.
You ever seen me before, lady?
Never laid eyes on you.
See, Shadow, what'd I tell you?
You told me a big fat lie, Sam, and I just caught you in it.
How does Shadow know that Sam and Frida have met before? Brain cramp. Question number 48. What is it you sit in, sleep in, and brush your teeth with? Mindtrap question number 49. Janet Brown emerged from the bushes at the edge of the river to survey the scene.
Tarnation! devastation. The goddamn bridge is washed away.
In frustration, Janet dropped the bushel basket of corn on the ground and sat on it. While keeping a careful eye on the corn-eating fox and her duck, she tried to figure out how the heck she was going to get across the river.
Afternoon, Janet.
Clem, is that you?
Tain't any other near as I can figure, leastwise I was Clem last time I paused to look in the mirror, which would have been a week ago Tuesday last.
Clem Walton was the local nomadic hermit, dumb as a post and about twice as thick. Janet shook her head in amusement, but was careful not to take her eyes off the fox and the duck.
I guess you noticed that the bridge was washed out then, have you?
I have noticed, Clem. In fact, I was just having a sit to figure how best to get myself, this corn, that fox, and my duck over to the other side.
That's your duck?
Is it?
Actually, now that I see it in the light, I notice the resemblance.
Oh, Clem.
So why are you figuring?
'Cause I gotta get across the river, Clem.
What's the figure? Use that boat yonder.
Janet looked in the direction that Clem was pointing and quickly noticed the small rowboat that someone had indeed tried to conceal in the bulrushes.
Well, what do you know, Clem? There is a boat. Clem? Clem?
As Janet turned to thank Clem for his help, she noticed that he was gone as quick as he'd arrived.
No moss is ever gonna grow between your toes, Clem. Maybe between your ears, but not between your toes.
Janet went over and pulled the boat out of the rushes and quickly realized that it was too small to get anything but herself and one passenger in the boat. So she was looking at 3 trips. As she was considering this, she realized that she'd left the duck, the corn-eating fox, and the corn unattended, and quickly turned to see the duck eating the corn and the fox about ready to pounce on the duck.
Duck, get out of the corn! And you, fox, quit eyeing that duck!
With all of them separated, Janet tried to figure out how she was going to manage the transport. If she took the corn first, the fox would eat the duck. If she took the fox, the duck would eat the corn. If she took the duck, the fox would eat the corn.
God damn it, get away from that duck, fox!
As Janet guided the boat along the shore by its rope, a solution suddenly came to her.
Well, isn't that a smart solution? And it'll even save me a trip.
How did Janet manage the trip using only the boat at hand? Mindtrap question number 50. Professor Quantum brushed the chalk from his trousers as he stood to greet the nattily-attired Professor Herring as she entered his office.
Professor Quantum, it is indeed a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, Professor.
I understand that you are still looking to fill an English history position.
Indeed we are.
Then you've no reason to look any further.
Herring, anxious to seal the position in her favor, went on to detail a long list of teaching credentials she had earned while on lecture tours abroad. Quantum listened intently, nodding to ensure that the professor had no doubt that he acknowledged her accomplishments.
Very impressive indeed, Professor Herring, and I'm certainly delighted that you chose tonight of all nights to arrange an interview.
Professor Herring looked somewhat perplexed until Quantum explained further.
You see, there's a charity auction tonight of some rather interesting English antiquities, and I dare say I could use some assistance in selecting some items to bid on.
I'd love to help.
Quantum presented Herring with the lot list, and after perusing it for several moments, she proclaimed,
To be honest, Professor, half the things on this list are total rubbish, and the others, well, I would gather they would be rather expensive.
Well, it is for charity, so I feel compelled to purchase something. Is there anything you could recommend?
Herring reviewed the list again.
Well, there is the letter written in Old English by King George the First, dated 1716. But I would guess it would be quite dear.
Yes, quite. Anything else?
The wig worn by Queen Elizabeth the First. But I think the best buy might be the letter written by the Duke of Bedford and addressed to Queen Elizabeth the First, Buckingham Palace.
That's very interesting, Professor.
What, Professor?
Sometimes it takes a fraud to catch a fraud, for you indeed are a fraud.
How did Quantum know she was a fraud? Mindtrap question number 51. It was a typical night at the Solis Hotel. Art Bragg on his favorite bar stool, wearing his favorite bowling shirt, doing his favorite thing in the world, spinning a yarn.
So there I was, in the remotest part of the Amazon rainforest, completely separated from the rest of the expedition.
Were you lost?
Lost? Heck no. I was headed for the river, slashing my way through the undergrowth with a machete. When I tripped, I staggered to get up. And I'm looking right at the business end of a blowgun.
A blowgun?
It was 6 feet long and at least 2 inches wide, with the tattooed lips of this 3-foot-high hand-painted heathen wrapped around the other end.
You must have been scared spitless.
Listen, pal, I don't mind admitting, I was a tad shook. I mean, this savage was as mean as a pit bull and twice as ugly.
So then what happened?
Well, him and the rest of his heathen horde bound me arm and leg, staked me to the ground, and put on the water to boil. Hey, can I get another one here, barkeep?
So go on.
Anyway, so while they're debating the finer culinary details of the menu with yours truly as all 4 courses,
I remember a trick I learned from the great Harry Houdini. And make my escape.
You escaped?
Yeah, but unfortunately one of those little savages spotted me.
Here you go, Bragg.
Put it on my tab, waitress.
Hey, thank you kindly, sir.
So then what happened?
Saw the chase is on, as it were. Now I managed to ambush the little tattooed runt and beat him for his blowgun. Then I hightailed it for the river with the whole darnation tribe in hot pursuit.
The whole tribe?
Every man, woman, child, and domesticated house pet was hot on my heels. So I hit the river, a triple sumi with a half gainer in the bite position, swim into a reed bed, and using the blowgun as a vascular respiration device, I managed to stay completely submerged and hidden for over an hour.
Wow.
So then I followed the river back to civilization and lived to tell the tale.
At this point, a stranger at the end of the bar, having heard the whole story, turns a skeptical gaze on Bragg.
That's a heck of a story, mister, but I ain't buying it.
Say, what's your problem, stranger?
I don't have a problem, but your story sure does.
Why doesn't the stranger believe Bragg's story? Brain cramp. Question number 52. In 1969, Pan American Airlines accepted over 80,000 reservations for commercial flights, but failed to specify either the dates or the times of the trip. Furthermore, to this day, they have not bothered to honor a single reservation. Why? Mindtrap question number 53. It was a dark and quiet night. Business was slow, so Sam Sham, elbow on the windowsill, hand hanging over the steering wheel, cruised the city in his taxi searching for a fare. Finally, he spotted a rather nattily attired man at the side of the road, flagging him down.
Where you going, fella?
Well, I say, I'm going down to the beach.
Get in.
Sid Shady got into the cab clutching a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of champagne.
So, busy night?
Nah, quiet. People must be staying home for entertainment.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sure looks like you're armed for romance.
I sure am, pal, but she's worth it, I'll tell you, if you know what I mean.
No, haven't got a clue.
Why's that?
I'm married.
Well, so am I.
So where exactly in the beach you going, pal?
362 Oceanside Drive, over at Larchmouth. Now listen, you're best off taking Seaside across, then down Larchmouth. You got that?
Sam nodded his head in agreement, recognizing it as the fastest route.
You know, I was just thinking, I'm only going to be a couple of hours, if you know what I mean. So why don't you swing by after and you can take me back uptown?
I got a better idea, pal.
What's that?
Why don't we stop here and I put a slug in your melon?
On second thought.
Sam Sham stopped the cab, pulled the snub-nosed revolver from under his seat, casually turned and shot Sid Shady. Dead. Then he threw the body on the side of the road and sped away. If Sid and Sam had never met and never even knew each other's names, why did Sam shoot Sid? Mindtrap question number 54. England, 1794. Sir Henry and his mistress, still abed, sat propped against their pillows as they ate their breakfast and reviewed the day's correspondence.
Why, Henry, we're invited to another New Year's Eve party.
Oh, marvelous. I was afraid we'd be forced to go to the Duchess of York's again. Who's it from?
William Congreve and the Duchess of Marlborough.
Oh, wonderful. The mad playwright and the eccentric Henrietta.
Shall I reply?
Of course, darling. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Besides, I'm dying to see how old Congreve was held up. I understand he's been ill recently.
Oh, Henry, you're terrible.
On the eve of the new year, the guests arrived and were ushered into the great banquet hall. In turn, each bowed, as instructed, to the great playwright.
Good evening, Henrietta.
Sir John.
Good evening, Congreve.
You'll have to forgive William, Sir John. He's been ill.
Of course, Duchess.
Throughout the celebrations, Henrietta fussed over William incessantly at the head table. William sat in reticent silence, refusing to even acknowledge his guests. While he chose to neither eat nor drink, his guests took full advantage of the hospitality and quietly got rather drunk.
William, old stick.
Much to the gathered guests' delighted horror, Congreve's personal physician, growing tired of the reserved nature of the celebration, and perhaps a little in his cups, chose to address the reticence of his host.
I say, William, how the devil are you feeling, you old man?
Since Congreve chose not to acknowledge the query, the doctor turned to Henrietta.
You know, my dear Henrietta, despite his silence, I must say I don't believe I've ever seen William look better.
Why was the doctor's comment so unusually funny? Mindtrap question number 55. Barney Dribble ran anxiously into the offices of Suction Unlimited. It was perhaps the biggest day of his life as a vacuum salesman.
Hey, Barney, what's the hurry?
Art Bragg, Barney's sales manager at Suction Unlimited, stopped Barney in the hall.
I got the biggest
presentation on my life today at 3 o'clock, Art.
All right, well, calm down. What's so big about it, Barney?
Well, I've been asked to give a presentation to the Woman for Equal Rights movement. There's going to be 3,000 women there.
Oh, yeah? What's your topic? Suction and how it can change your life?
No, a clean house is a labor of love, not duty.
Sounds compelling.
Yeah, instead of dragging these vacuums door to door, I figured this one meeting is like killing 3,000 birds with one stone.
So what the heck are you doing here? It's 5 minutes to 3.
Oh, man, I'm late. Can you help me load up some of these demonstrators?
All right.
Reluctantly, Art helped Barney drag some of the latest models of Suction Unlimited vacuum cleaners out to his station wagon. Quickly, they loaded them, and Barney jumped in the car.
Now listen, Barney, I know you're late, but drive careful.
I will, boss.
I'm serious. Drive careful.
Art had barely shut the door when Barney sped away from the loading ramp. The car was airborne as it left the parking lot. Art just shook his head in disbelief.
Slow down! Oh, no wonder he has the worst driving record in the company. He's dangerous.
Barney raced through town, clutching the steering wheel in sweat-soaked palms as he rehearsed the speech for the umpteenth time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Suddenly, Barney braked.
I can't believe it!
Swerving to the side of the road, Barney leapt out of his car and ran as fast as he could off into the field beside the road. Why would Barney suddenly abandon his car, the vacuums, and his opportunity to make the presentation? Brain cramp. Question number 56. What kind of woodworking is done in most offices? Mindtrap question number 57.
Dr. Sherman to Practology. Dr. Sherman to Practology.
Detective Shadow stepped over the yellow police ribbon, pushing open the door to Shady's hospital room.
All right, who's the constable in charge here?
Hey, Shadow, how's your holster?
Bumlinger. Should have guessed. Look, you want to get the nurses out of here, Bumlinger? I'm sure they've seen their share of stiffs.
Okay, gals, let's lay crepe rubber.
Shadow examined the lifeless mass that was once Sid Shady. The pillow had been removed from his face to check for respiration, and in the process, even more down feathers had been spilled on the body and bed.
I figure either someone smothered him with the pillow, or else there was a heck of a tag team duck pluck in here.
Yeah, very perceptive, Bumlinger.
Listen, who would want to kill this guy so bad?
Shadow explained that Shady had turned stool pigeon when he was charged with the murder of a local steel union boss. While secretly being transferred to a witness protection safe house, an assassin had shot him in the shoulder. He was recovering in this very hospital room when he was murdered.
Well, it certainly looks like he fought to the end.
Yeah, any witnesses?
Just the cop on the door, Ballister.
What did he see?
Nada. Only people in the room are the doctor and the stiff's twist, a Mrs. Shady.
Did he search him?
Of course. He swears nothing was brought in or out of the room.
Interesting. I'll need to talk to this Ballister.
Why, you figure you forgot something?
Yeah, he forgot that police officers aren't supposed to lie.
What is Ballister lying about? Mindtrap question number 58.
And as we all know, the demands of the agrarian lifestyle determined the social structure of early American society, the 12-hour workday as well as the 6-day work week. But then it happened, the advent of organic fertilizer.
Professor Quantum was nearing the end of his lecture on the American Agricultural Revolution when he noticed that his voice was in keen competition with the hypnotic tones of an open-mouthed, snoring Hilda Frump.
Organic fertilizer, people, the Rosetta Stone of agriculture.
Reveling in moments such as these, Quantum slowly moved toward the slumbering mass that was Hilda Frump.
In fact, there's probably only one man-made invention that had greater impact than organic fertilizer.
Arriving at Hilda's desk, Quantum leaned over, placed his lips but inches from the peacefully reposed co-ed.
Ms. Frump!
Roman calendar.
Hilda sat bolt upright, shocked from her sleepful state, realizing at once that she had literally been caught napping.
Perhaps you can tell us what key event occurred on November 31st, 1793 that rivaled in importance the advent of organic fertilizer and sparked the agricultural revolution in America.
Hilda racked her brains for the appropriate response. The rest of the class savored the moment as only those thankful to be avoiding similar embarrassment can. Rolling the date around in her head, she concentrated on the events of that time. Then the light went on. Hilda smiled and looked Quantum directly in the eye as she proudly responded,
As I recall, Professor Quantum, that is the exact date that Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin.
What was wrong with Hilda's response? Mindtrap question number 59. It was 5 o'clock on a beautiful Friday afternoon. Sid Shady gingerly placed another stack of deposit envelopes on top of the pile and slunk back to the alley to wait. Shady just loved Fridays because Friday was payday. He chuckled to himself with sinister pride.
Oh, boy, I love this. I got myself a regular delivery system going here.
Shady hugged the shadows as he watched several people withdraw their cash and leave. Moments later, he watched as a young woman approached the bank machine. She wore a white uniform.
Boy, look at that babe. Probably a nurse. Yeah, she must do all right. Makes probably $20 an hour. This could be perfect.
Picking the likely victims was half of the fun for Shady. It was so random.
Let me get that for you, ma'am.
Oh, thank you.
A security guard held the door for the nurse as she exited the bank, counting her cash. Shady followed her. She got about 3 steps before she started to stagger. Shady moved quickly, grabbing the woman under the arms and around the chest just as she was about to slump to the pavement. Propping her up, Shady dragged her into the alley and unceremoniously dropped her where he had stashed the rest of his victims.
Thanks for coming out, suckerette.
Shady quickly rifled the woman's purse. Finding the cash, he gave it a quick kiss before pocketing it. Then he returned to the bank like a spider to his web, waiting oh so patiently for the next victim. How was Shady murdering his victims? Brain cramp. Question number 60. Many people who are interested in American history and politics, and especially Republicans, never tire of pointing out that Woodrow Wilson was a character of such dubious leadership qualities that even his own mother failed to vote for him in his quest for the presidency. Wilson won, but he didn't get his own mother's vote. Why not? Mindtrap question number 61. Vietnam, 1962. Somewhere over the dense jungle of Cambodia, an American bomber streaks toward its primary target.
Come in, Charlie Foxtrot Bravo. This is Delta Zebra Command. Over.
Charlie Foxtrot Bravo, go ahead, Delta Zebra.
We have a target designation change to your primary cluster run. Alpha Lima 235.76, change to X-ray fiber 47.82. Copy, over.
Delta Zebra, we copy X-ray fiber 47.82. Over.
Happy hunting, Charlie Foxtrot Bravo. Over and out.
After adjusting his flight plan to correspond with his primary target change, the pilot sped to his new target. Approaching the target, he relayed his final instructions to the bomb bay.
Pilot the Bombardier, we are vectoring to our prime target. Bay doors open.
Bay doors open.
Verify coordinates.
Coordinates verified.
Arm detonator.
Detonator's armed.
Prepare to release payload.
Fire.
Bombs away.
Bombs away.
The plane encountered no opposing forces or hostile fire and was in the precise position for a direct hit when the pilot ordered the bombs to be released. However, when released, the bombs never left the plane. Why? End of side C. Mindtrap question number 62. Detective Shadow padded up the well-worn dirt path to the Shady summer cottage. Grandma Shady sat in a rocking chair on the porch. Looking off into the distance across the lake, she caught the movement below.
Evening, Detective.
Shadow looked at her in surprise.
Don't look so surprised, young man. I'm deaf, not dumb.
Shadow considered how best to communicate with the old woman.
Tarnation, son, just look at me when you talk. I can read lips just fine. And don't speak too slow or your words run together.
Fine, man. Perhaps you could tell me about the accident.
Grandma Shady turned her gaze to the lake again and fiddled with the hem of her dress as she recounted the details.
Well, you know, it was a beautiful evening like tonight. Grandpa and I were out for a sail, as we usually did. We brought our dinner with us. Some, cold chicken, potato salad, and a few cold beers. Do you want a beer, son?
No, thanks, man. How did the accident happen?
Well, after dinner, we were just sitting in the aft cabin, and Grandpa said he was going up for, a smoke on the deck, just like usual.
And you stayed below?
Well, I was reading the Inquisitor, some article about a woman who gave birth to a 12-pound baby crocodile. It was amazing.
So you're reading, and he's up on the deck?
Exactly so, son. Anyways, I figure he must have been arcing one over the side.
Arcing one, ma'am?
Relieving himself, son. Having a tinkle. Arcing a stream.
All the beer, I guess.
I suppose.
Shadow looked over Grandma Shady's shoulder to where the groundskeeper had just fired at an ancient old lawnmower.
Anyways, I found him half an hour later when I went up on the deck. He was floating with his pants at his ankles, drowned dead.
I see.
Perhaps we should go inside, son.
Shadow held the screen door for Grandma as she shuffled into the cottage. They seated themselves in front of the picture window in the living room.
You know, if I wasn't as deaf as a post, I probably would have heard him splashing around and could have saved him.
Not likely, Grandma.
What's that, son?
Shadow looked directly at Grandma as he replied.
I'm afraid there's a big hole in your story, ma'am.
Why does Detective Shadow think Grandma Shady is lying? Mindtrap question number 63. Detective Shadow pulled the sheet up over the vacuous eyes of the corpse that was once Sam Sham. Even after all this time, the smell of cordite still hung in the air of the hotel room. Sid Shady, appropriately clothed from head to toe in the Italian tartan, black, sat in the chair across the room.
Look, I'm tired of the smell in here. Let's go back to your room and go over it once more.
What's the point, Shadow? It ain't gonna change.
So humor me, Sid.
I already have been.
Shadow took Shady's room key, opened the door, and removed the Do Not Disturb sign. As he groped for the light switch, he instructed Shady to go over it again.
Look, like I said 5 times before, I'm lying on my bed reading
this.
Shadow picked up the dog-eared Gideon's Bible lying on the bed and read a few lines.
Yeah, I can personally identify with some of the major characters.
No doubt. So then what happened?
Well, I hear a commotion like, then a scream, then boom, boom. 2 gunshots real fast like.
As opposed to slow like.
Exactly. So I run to the hall just in time to see this tomato with a gun still in her hand running down the hallway. I only seen her from the back, but I remember she was wearing a red kerchief.
A red kerchief?
Yeah, you know, K-E-R chief, kerchief. So then I runs into old Sam's room, and there he is, dead as the bolt on his door.
And that's it?
Well, yeah, and then hotel security arrives, swarms me, and tells me I murdered him.
And based on your story, Sid, they told you right.
How does Shadow know that Shady is lying? Brain cramp. Question number 64. Clem Walton's father was older than his grandfather. How is this possible? Mindtrap question number 65. Standing before the circus tent, Deceptor, the Polish prestidigitator, passionately implored the passing crowd.
Please to be stepping right this way, ladies and gentle people, for greatest feat of magic ever performed before ever. I, the great Deceptor, magician of world renown, particularly among the Eastern Bloc types, will be taking of some wood that will I then transform into a variety of different shapes.
Deceptor's patter, or perhaps his accent, began to draw a crowd.
Yes, indeediness, people, I will begin to start with a perfect tube of wood. Then I will, before your very own eyes, be transforming of this same wood from cube into pyramid. Then again, same wood into cylindrical-like cylinder shape. Then, for grand finale, I again take same wood, transform again into cube of original size, from which I stop.
The crowd, intrigued by the promise of magic, began to file into the circus tent.
This is greatest trick not to be missed by humankind before. Be stepping right up this way now.
How could the great Deceptor manage to perform this truly incredible feat? Mindtrap question number 66. The year was 1483. The place, London, England.
Bring that swine Wyatt before me. Now.
Yes, Your Majesty, at once.
Sir Henry Wyatt was led into the chambers of King Richard III. His hands bound, he was roughly thrust before the throne by the guards. He bowed low and long to King Richard.
Your acted humble deference will do you no good, Sir Henry. Stand straight.
Wyatt stood before the king, but still refused to look him in the eye.
I have learned of your treachery, Sir Henry. Do you deny your involvement in the recent uprisings against me?
I have always been loyal to my country, Your Majesty.
Then you do not deny your treason.
I have done nothing treasonous.
Nothing treasonous? You consorted with those who sought to dethrone me. You are a traitorous dog.
The king, consumed by his rage, glared at Wyatt in silence. Again, gaining control of his passion, he continued.
Obviously, beheading is too noble a death for the likes of you. Hanging is even above you.
The king's look of frustrated rage was replaced by a sinister smile.
I sentence you to death by starvation. You shall be sealed in the Tower of London, and you can spend the last weeks of your pitiful life reflecting on your treachery to God's great servant on this earth, your king. Take him away.
The guards grabbed Sir Henry and began to lead him from the chamber.
And let it be known that should anyone, regardless of rank or standing in my court, be caught taking even the smallest morsel of food to this cur, I shall have both his hands chopped off.
Now get him out of my sight.
Sir Henry was indeed confined in the Tower of London. No man dared visit him, let alone take him any food. Yet several months passed and Sir Henry was still in reasonably good health. How could this be? Mindtrap question number 67. The two old-timers sat outside the local grocery store, chewing tobacco and spitting for accuracy. Shadow wandered up to them, careful to avoid their misfires.
Afternoon, fellas.
Shadow?
Say, Shadow, you heard the news on old Clem?
Yes, I have, Wilbur.
Clem Walton was the town hermit. Born an only child, he had no desire for company of any kind. Never married, he was just plain happy to sit at home with his one true love, his stamp collection.
Well, apparently...
Nice shot, Wilbur.
Thank you, Carmine. Apparently you got some highfalutin visitor from the city staying with him.
Visitor?
A visitor.
Clem?
Yep, looking out for him, as it were.
Looking out for his stamp collections, more likely.
Iron outside, Carmine.
Too much lip. Yep, Shadow, they say that stamp collection of his is worth a darn fortune.
I've seen it. It is.
With that, Shadow felt it was high time to pay a visit to Clem's house. As he knocked on the door, he was greeted by a buxom and beautiful nurse.
Can I help you?
Yeah, is Clem about?
No, Uncle Clem is in bed resting.
Clem is your uncle?
Oh, surprised me too. But you see, we got a call at St. Mary's Hospital. That's where I work. That Clem Walton had fallen and injured his hip.
Yeah, right.
And, well, as I was reviewing his records, I realized that he was my long-lost uncle.
I see.
And, well, I just couldn't stand to see kin of mine suffer alone, so I've taken a leave of absence till he's back on his feet.
And, how does old Clem feel about this?
Oh, well, he's just tickled. Why, just tonight I helped him catalog his latest stamp, the famous Monaco stamp that has Franklin Roosevelt with 6 fingers on one hand.
Interesting story, lady, but I'm not biting. Where's Clem? I want to see him now.
Why doesn't Shadow believe the woman? Brain cramp. Question number 68. What are the last few hairs on a dog's tail called? Mindtrap question number 69. Barney Dribble continued to white-knuckle the handle of the cheap vinyl attaché case. Inside, his stomach was churning like a cement mixer. Trying his best to look nonchalant, he smiled and nodded to his fellow passengers.
How are you today?
Fine, thanks.
Barney looked out the plane's window to gaze at the jagged peaks of the majestic black mountains looming in the distance. But this only made him feel even less secure.
Beautiful, aren't they?
Yes, beautiful.
Closing his eyes, Barney concentrated on the drone of the airplane's propellers. The steady throb and corresponding vibration had the desired effect. He was actually beginning to relax.
There you are, you sniveling worm!
Hearing his wife's booming voice, Barney sat bolt upright in his seat.
Where's I just moved.
Shut up, you coward! You don't leave Bertha until Bertha says you can leave Bertha!
The other passengers shrunk back in horror as the obviously drunk Bertha Dribble pulled a small handgun from her purse and started waving it wildly in the air.
Give me that case, you sack of dung!
Take it easy, Bertha. I'm not leaving.
You're damn right you're not. Either you give me that case now without a struggle, or no one is getting off this plane alive.
Give her the case, mister. I don't want to die.
Barney looked first at the frightened man beside him. Then he looked into the wild eyes of his wife Bertha and knew she had every intention of making good on her threat. Slowly, he rose.
That's it, you doormat! Give me the case!
As if losing control of his senses, Barney quickly lunged across the seat for the door of the plane. In one motion, he unlocked the latch, threw open the door, and dove out of the plane.
Barney!
Barney had neither a parachute nor a device of any kind to break his fall, yet miraculously he landed unhurt. How? Mindtrap question number 70. Art Bragg thought that he was the best at everything.
Ain't nobody in the world that can do things half as well as I can.
In fact, true to his name, he often bragged about it.
If I can't do it, it can't be done, period.
His wife felt the same way, which is probably a good thing. Otherwise, it might have gotten ugly.
If it ain't done by my art, it just ain't done right.
One day, however, Art and his wife decided that they needed the help of Reggie, their 80-year-old deaf and crippled neighbor, to do something that neither of them could do.
This looks like a job for Reggie, dear.
Right as usual, dear.
Since Reggie possessed no particular skill or talent, what could he have possibly helped them with? Mindtrap question number 71.
I hate the 4th of July.
Sid Shady proclaimed to Sam Sham and anyone else in the bar who cared to listen.
What do you mean? You some kind of pinko or something?
No, I'm as patriotic as the next guy. More even. It's just that it's the anniversary of my dear departed 5th wife's death.
Oh, sorry to hear that, Sid. How'd it happen?
Sensing a story, the other patrons at the bar hushed to listen.
Well, the wife and I always like to celebrate the 4th in a different part of our great land. So that particular year, we went to northern Alaska.
Never been there.
Not many have. Anyways, we decided to climb Mount Doonarak. It's part of the Brooks Mountain Range. Another highball here, barkeep.
Yeah, on its way there, Sid.
So what happened, Sid?
Well, we were up there at 6,000 feet, see? Beautiful, calm night, see? Stars just a shimmering.
Sounds beautiful.
It was, I'll tell you. So the wife, she's there gazing at the stars, and I sneak around to the side of the mountain with these fireworks I've smuggled up in my pack.
Yeah, you romantic hound, you.
Yeah, so I set off them fireworks and damn near scared the freckles off her.
Died of a heart attack, did she?
No, she had a good heart. Her lungs gave out.
Her lungs?
Yeah, the fireworks started an avalanche, and while I was protected by an overhanging cliff, she took the full force of it. Got smothered under 30 feet of snow.
That's a shame, mister. A toast to your wife.
Say thanks, mister. I'll drink to that.
Great story, Sid, but I'd either give it a minor modification or stop telling it.
Say, what do you mean?
Well, you tell that story to anyone with a little more brain power than the deadheads in this bar, and they'll know you murdered your wife.
What?
Sid stared at Sam in stunned silence. Then under his breath, he whispered to Sam.
How did you know?
How did he know? Brain cramp. Question number 72. What was the first transplant? Mindtrap question number 73. Sid Shady stood in the middle of the road in front of his oceanfront home, frantically waving his arms. The squad car screeched to a halt inches in front of him. Squinting in the glare of the high beams, Shady screamed.
Hurry up! My wife's been murdered!
Detective Shadow leapt from the car and followed Shady to the house.
What happened, Shady?
Well, I was sitting in the family room drinking a cold one, see, and watching the boob poop. Then suddenly I hear a crash in the bedroom and then a blood-curdling scream.
First a crash, then a scream?
Yeah, that's it, like I said. So I runs into the bedroom and finds this.
Shady opened the door to the bedroom for Shadow. Mrs. Shady lay dead on the floor, a knife in her back. The smell of a recently extinguished candle hung in the air. A broken jug and a puddle of water lay near her head. As Shadow studied the gruesome sight, he felt the cool breeze that always blew off the ocean at this time of night. Only tonight, it chilled him to his marrow.
Did you touch anything, Shady?
No, I didn't. See, I called you guys as soon as I found her. I didn't want to disturb any clues, you know.
Shadow had moved over to close the open window, and as he turned, he noticed that Mrs. Shady clutched a letter opener in one hand and a bottle of sleeping pills in the other. Shadow watched Shady as he sat on the edge of the bed, nervously picking the candle wax that had solidified on Shadow's side of the candle.
All right, what are you hiding, Shady?
What do you mean, copper? My old lady's lying there with a shiv in her back. What's to hide?
You gotta be hiding something, Shady. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to lie to me.
How does Shadow know that Shady is lying? Mindtrap question number 74. It was a typical Thursday night at the bar of the Dewdrop Inn. The music was as sleazy as the clientele. The beer as cold as the hearts of the regulars. Gloria Goodbody minced across the room and up to the bar, turning heads the entire length of her journey.
Hey, Harold.
Yeah, baby?
Can you service me?
Why, sure.
Harold finished pouring a bourbon and branch and set it on the waitress's tray. Wiping his hands on his apron, he approached Gloria.
The usual, Gloria?
No, more of a special request, actually.
Curling her fingers around Harold's apron strap, she pulled him close. Tossing her hair aside with a gentle turn of her neck, she nuzzled up to Harold's neck and whispered softly in his ear.
You know what I need?
No, what do you need?
A tall,
Yeah?
cool
Yeah?
glass of water.
Oh.
As she pulled away, Harold returned her coquettish smile with a knowing grin. Reaching beneath the bar, he pulled out a sawed-off shotgun and put it to Gloria's throat. The bar stood motionless in time. Not a single soul dared draw a breath. The smile returned to Gloria's pouting lips as she seductively guided the gun away with her index finger and again, grabbing Harold by the apron, pulled him close for a long, deep kiss.
Thanks, Harold. I needed that.
My pleasure, Gloria.
With that, Gloria dropped a 20 on the bar, threw a wink at Harold, and slowly strutted out of the room. Why would Gloria thank Harold for his bizarre behavior? Mindtrap question number 75.
I swear to you on my mother's grave that this is a forgery.
Hans looked at the judge imploringly, hoping beyond hope that the judge would believe him. The judge, however, was skeptical.
Hans, I have examined this painting. The experts have examined this painting. They all believe it to be a genuine Vermeer.
But, Your Honor, I know it is a forgery because I painted it.
You painted this?
I did, Your Honor.
You are admitting in open court that you are a fraud that has made a fortune by forging the works of the great Vermeer?
I am, Your Honor, and I can prove it.
How?
If you would be so kind as to allow me to paint another painting, just like the one you see before you, it would prove the truth about my dishonesty.
Well, I must say that this case is unlike any that I have ever sat before. I grant your request. How long will you need?
A couple of weeks, Your Honor.
Granted, you shall paint it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And we shall have our answer. Court is in recess for 2 weeks.
2 weeks later, Hans appeared again before the court.
I don't believe it. That's absolutely incredible.
Don't take it so hard, Your Honor. Imagine how the jury of art critics that had to confirm my forgery feel, yeah?
Hans, you are a remarkably talented man. I commend you and dismiss you from my court as a free man. Case dismissed.
Why would the judge dismiss an admitted forgery? Brain cramp. Question number 76. If a daddy bull eats 1 bale of hay every waking hour, and a baby bull eats 1/4 of a bale of hay every waking hour, how much hay would a mommy bull eat every waking hour? Mindtrap question number 77.
Admission is 20 francs. And you stupid American animal-loving tourist, your dog cannot go inside.
Professor Quantum just looked at the ticket taker to the art gallery and shook his head. After spending the last 3 weeks in Paris, he was growing accustomed to French hospitality.
First of all, he's not my dog. He belongs to my friend.
Another stupid American animal-loving tourist, no doubt.
No doubt. And second of all, if you had any intelligence at all, you would have noticed that he is a seeing-eye dog and my friend is blind.
And I'm sure he will get as much out of the art as most of his hamburger-loving countrymen. 40 francs.
Quantum and his friend, Professor Belvedere, ignored the ticket taker's rudeness and entered the museum. The first exhibit they encountered was for Botticelli, the famous 15th century Italian painter.
We're standing in front of the Madonna of the Rose.
Yes, I know it well. Please describe it to me as you see it.
It is a canvas of 50 by 25 inches. The Madonna is seated in an archway, cradling her baby. The colors are brilliant, especially the pomegranate.
Ah, yes, the pomegranate. A favorite motif of Botticelli's Madonna works.
Yes, one of the symbols of the Passion.
Quantum continued to describe the beauty of the painting in precise and colorful language.
If it is as beautiful as you describe it, Professor, it must be wondrous to behold.
Yes. Next, we have Botticelli's Last Supper.
Please, describe it.
Again, the colors are vibrant and brilliant. Of course, Jesus is seated at the table, surrounded by his 12 disciples.
And what is on the table?
Well, it's quite a rough-hewn table. It has several bowls on it laden with fruit, oranges, grapes, dates.
Quantum continued to describe the painting in ever greater detail as Belvedere tried to picture it with his mind's eye.
Thank you, my friend. I feel as if I have seen this painting with my own eye.
You flatter me, Professor. Shall we move on?
Yes, but you know, though I have no doubt about Botticelli's ability as a painter, he could certainly learn a thing or two about history.
Why do you say that, Professor?
Why did Professor Belvedere say that? Mindtrap question number 78. Art Bragg was just plain happy. He turned to look out his rear window as he slowly drove up the ramp, watching carefully as his boat and trailer emerged from Sucker Lake. Getting out of the pickup to strap the boat to the trailer, he took one long last look of admiration at the boat before removing the drain plug. Whistling contentedly to himself, he played the wheel of his pickup truck in order to fight the gentle pull of the boat and trailer. Glancing in his rearview mirror, he watched Sucker Lake grow smaller and smaller as he drove on. Anxious to call with his news, Art scanned the roadside as he traveled along, searching for a public telephone. Finally spotting one on the other side of the road, Art carefully pulled a U-E and leapt from the cab of his pickup.
Hi, it's Art. No, I'm just on my way home. Oh, man, it was great. Unbelievable. What? Are you kidding? Of course I did. That's why I'm calling. Oh, you should see the size of these.
This was the last conversation Art Bragg ever participated in. A short time later, he was found dead in the phone booth, the phone swinging by its cord in a pool of blood surrounded by shattered glass. Since foul play was not a factor, how did he die?
Please hang up. This is a recording.
Mindtrap question number 79. It was the winter of 1943. Helmut and his two fellow American soldiers stood huddled in a darkened alleyway outside the beer hall. It had been 2 hours since they had made their daring escape under the barbed wire of Stalag 12. Shuddering from the cold, they watched 3 drunken German soldiers weave their way down the alley.
Okay, everybody got a man?
The big colonel is mine.
I got the short sergeant.
The first guy's mine. Remember, easy on the uniforms. Now!
They dragged the bodies into the darkness, quickly exchanged the clothing, and emerged from the alley. As they stood admiring the near-perfect fits of their newfound uniforms in the glow of a streetlight, they considered their situation.
Now what?
No point in wasting our German lessons. I say we blow the froth off one.
A beer? Are you crazy?
Yeah, ich bin nuts.
The 3 Americans entered the beer hall. All eyes turned in their direction. Ignoring the sudden attention, they shouted their order to the barmaid in flawless German and casually seated themselves at a table. As she arrived with the pitcher, she gave the soldiers a good, long look.
Danke.
Adopting the attitude of soldiers everywhere, they shamelessly flirted with the barmaid.
Ja, meine Schatz, in Rock ist die aufgeboten.
And despite the demands of the clever conversation, their language and accents were as precise as the meaning of their innuendo. Making no effort to discourage their advances, the barmaid paid particular interest to Helmut's 2 companions. The remaining patrons in the bar shrugged and returned their interest to their pilsners. But as a senior German officer entered the beer hall, he took but one look at the disguised American soldiers and yelled, How did he know they were imposters? Brain cramp. Question number 80. 2 men were playing tennis. They played 5 sets and each man won 3 sets. How was this possible? That concludes this edition of Mindtrap. Hope you had fun along the way. And remember, one trip through the world of Mindtrap is never enough. So, until we meet again.